For the sake of my sect, I bound myself to the forbidden grounds for 500 years. Yet upon my return, everything had changed beyond recognition. The master despised me. The senior sisters detested me. The newly arrived junior brother even went so far as to replace everything that was once mine. However, through the illusions, I witnessed events that would unfold 10,000 years later. From then on, I renounced my sect with a parchment of resignation and left the sect. I became a wanderer, seeking the great path on my own. Just as I was conquering the heavens with my songs of war, my former master and sisters tearfully begged me to return to the sect. To this, my only response was, "Your beloved junior brother died 500 years ago. You made your choice." The resonance of the universe belongs to the natural laws of heaven and earth. They permeate between heaven and earth, hidden beyond the three realms. Theoretically speaking, this universal resonance is inexhaustible and ever-present. However, these forces cannot be harnessed directly. One must use special materials to craft them into talismans. These talismans are the only means to utilize them in combat. And because there are so many types of universal resonances, it results in talismans having a variety of effects. If one were to categorize them, they could broadly be divided into three types: support, offensive, and special. The support type includes some like the speed enhancement charm, the aura concealment charm, and the spirit attraction charm, such as the spirit gathering charm, are used to aid cultivators, whereas offensive charms do not require the manipulation of natural spiritual energies and can be used directly against enemies. Among these, the most common are the lightning summoning charm and the fire dragon charm. As for the special category, it is more complex. This category cannot be finely divided, but includes some extremely rare charms, such as those that increase the success rate of bonding with magical artifacts, accelerate the growth of spiritual plants, and even inspire warriors on the battlefield to become fearless and bloodthirsty. Besides these categories, talismans also have a strict hierarchy of grades. From 1st to 9th grade, each increase in grade represents a qualitative leap. Similarly, the creation of each grade of talisman and even the materials needed for each category vary significantly, and they place high demands on the talisman masters. The most critical requirement is spiritual sense. An ordinary talisman master can at most create 3rd grade talismans, but beyond the 3rd grade, powerful spiritual sense is required to assist. By the 6th grade, one must use specialized divine resonance techniques. It is an exceedingly complex system. With each advancement in grade, the effects of the talismans become stronger. This is unquestionable. But this does not mean that higher grade talismans are necessarily more popular. On the contrary, the most popular talismans have always been the lower grade ones, because the higher the grade of the talisman, the more precious the materials required, and the greater the demands on the talisman master. Although powerful indeed, such items are not readily used by the ordinary people. For most cultivators, affordable low-grade talismans, if used properly, might actually be more effective. Gushu's goal was to earn spirit stones and resources, so he did not bother with crafting high-grade talismans. Even 2nd and 3rd grade talismans were outright ignored by him. He exclusively produced 1st grade talismans, which were the easiest to sell, because they were not expensive. Even the more financially constrained solo cultivators could afford them, and most importantly, they required the least amount of time to produce. Driven by the demand for the heavenly script talismans, Guzu was like a relentless overseer, mass-producing 1st grade talismans at an incredible rate. 300 talismans were produced in one batch, which took just 1 hour to complete. 8,000 talismans were completed. And what's more terrifying is that after producing 8,000 talismans, Guzu was only slightly tired. While it is said that talismans above the 3rd grade require a high level of spiritual sense, it does not mean that crafting lower grade talismans does not consume spiritual energy. 8,000 talismans, even if crafted by a master talisman maker like Mortian, would still cause substantial exhaustion, not to mention the considerable amount of time it would require. However, Guzu was not complacent about his rapid talisman production. Instead, he frowned, pondering, is making talismans supposed to cause such a commotion? It was only now that he realized he had unwittingly initiated a grand resonance of praise. The first time the grand resonance of praise was triggered, Guzu was comprehending the heavenly script talismans, and the second time, he was fully focused on talisman making. He had not noticed until now that such a large disturbance had been caused in the outside world. Retreat! Without hesitation, Guzu barked a command, and instantly, the resonances of the universe that had been manifesting in homage vanished completely. For some reason, Guzu could even feel that these active universal resonances seemed somewhat reluctant to leave. It is said that those recognized by the universal resonances are theoretically entitled to receive the grand resonance of praise. Although the heavenly script talismans are powerful, they shouldn't have been able to initiate such a grand resonance. Why would this happen? Guzu muttered to himself, his mind filled with confusion. But pondering this issue further seemed fruitless. Moreover, Guzu was more focused on another aspect now. Let me test the effectiveness of the talismans I've crafted. Muttering to himself, Guzu picked up a spirit-gathering talisman. This talisman is used during meditation retreats to enhance energy consumption. Its function, as its name suggests, is to quickly gather spiritual energy, making the cultivation process more potent. Its effect is similar to that of a spirit-gathering formation, but it uses less energy than the formation, and its effects are not significantly weaker. Most importantly, this talisman can be stacked with the spirit-gathering formation to enhance the effect. Without hesitation, Guzu activated the talisman in his hand. The first-grade spirit-gathering talisman ignited and burned into the air in an instant. Subsequently, a massive amount of spiritual energy rushed towards Guzu, even forming a faint vortex of spiritual energy in front of him, rapidly absorbing the already enhanced spiritual energy from the formation. This scene made Guzu's eyelids twitch. The airflow battled, and the spiritual energy spiraled. Shouldn't this be the effect of at least a second-grade spirit-gathering talisman? He picked up another spirit-gathering talisman and examined it closely. Guzu was certain this was indeed a first-grade talisman, both in terms of materials and the pattern of the talisman. It was completely a first-grade spirit-gathering talisman. If there was anything unusual, it was only the talisman script traced on the paper, which was extraordinarily lively and elegant. It was a natural masterpiece. After all, these talismans were not hand-drawn by Guzu. They were inscribed by the universal resonances themselves, something that ordinary people couldn't replicate perfectly. I once heard that when a talisman master creates talismans, they may enter a state akin to enlightenment, and in this state, the talisman master might transcend their limits and draw divine power. The talismans created in this state often exceed their current level. Such talismans are called Tao talismans. So could these talismans of mine be considered perfect Tao talismans? Guzu tested to more different talismans, and as expected, all the talismans he crafted reached the level of Tao talismans. In fact, they were not just ordinary Tao talismans. In terms of power, they surpassed typical Tao talismans. Perfect Tao talismans were no exaggeration. This discovery made Guzu's eyes shine brightly. His purpose in making talismans had always been to earn spirit stones and acquire cultivation resources. His talisman crafting speed already surpassed all other talisman masters. Now, each talisman was comparable to a perfect Tao talisman. However, amidst his joy, Guzu couldn't help but frown again. His mastery in talisman crafting was so formidable that, as long as he had enough materials, he could ensure both quality and quantity, making each talisman perfect. But the scene of the grand resonance of praise was too spectacular. Guzu hardly needed to think to understand. This commotion would undoubtedly attract a large number of talisman masters' attention at such a time. If he suddenly produced a large batch of perfect Tao talismans, it might actually draw too much attention. This was not what Guzu wanted. He was a wandering cultivator. He had the mindset of a wandering cultivator. Previously, in front of Surume, he had appropriately displayed his value at the right moments to achieve a relatively equal exchange of needs. But if this value was too shocking, it might backfire. But with so many talismans, it was impossible to keep a low profile and let them all rot in his hands without selling. If worst came to worst, he would release them batch by batch. If that didn't work, he would quickly leave Yangshao City after gaining the opportunity here. Pondering for a while, Yanzu made a decision. The name of the 10,000 Rhymes pilgrimage was too loud. He did not want to carry this title, but he could not sell the talismans. Living a frugal life was also not what Guzu wanted, so he had to sell them. He just needed to keep a low profile and try not to associate himself with the 10,000 Rhymes pilgrimage. Thinking about these useless things, it was better to look forward, to see what the green bamboo pole would bring him this time. Shaking his head, Guzu retracted his thoughts and took out the green bamboo pole. Since the last time, the green bamboo pole had fished out the 7 stars pendant. Now another 10 days had passed. Compared to selling talismans for spirit stones, the ability of the green bamboo pole to fish from the heavens was obviously more important. He stroked the string on the green bamboo pole. Zhu did not hesitate any longer and cast the pole immediately. Almost the moment the green bamboo pole was used, the other end sank. So quickly, Guzu was somewhat puzzled. The last time, fishing out the 7 stars pendant was extremely fast. This time seemed even quicker. More importantly, this time Guzu could even feel that the object on the other end of the spirit string seemed eager to be fished out by him. This time, could it be another opportunity from Zhongzhen? With this thought in mind, Guzu pulled up. When he saw what was on the other end, Gushu's expression turned astonished. At this moment, appearing on Gushu's green bamboo pole was an extremely unique mask. Its whole body was like white jade. It resembled a Rakshasa demon, and also a Vira of Buddhism. There were shimmering lights on it. Like a dream, like an illusion. It was both real and unreal. Guzu held it in his hand, immediately feeling its thinness like a cicada's wings, light as if it were weightless. There was a faint supreme Tao rhyme flowing on it, with a sense of Zen nurturing within it. This is the 3 bodies mask. It really was Zhongzhen's opportunity. Guzu was slightly astonished. For a moment, he was somewhat surprised. This mask is called the 3 bodies mask. It has the Zen charm of Buddhism. Its origin is related to Buddhism. Most importantly, this item has a special ability. The 3 bodies of Buddhism, the so-called 3 bodies of Buddhism, is a concept in Buddhism. They believe Buddha has 3 bodies, divided into the Dharma body, reward body, and transformation body. As stated in the Buddhist scriptures, the pure Dharma body is your nature, the perfect reward body is your wisdom, the countless transformation bodies are your actions, and this fleeting mask possesses the abilities of these 3 bodies. Just like when Guzu put on this fleeting mask, his whole image and temperament instantly changed. His stature grew a few inches taller. His white hair remained unchanged, but his facial features and temperament changed significantly. His entire face transformed, appearing like an illusion, perfectly unreal. More importantly, the supreme Tao bones and innate Tao rhyme on his body were not concealed at all at this moment. With endless Tao rhymes swirling around him, one could feel his brilliance just by looking at him. At this moment, he seemed born for the Tao. Every movement exuded spiritual Tao rhyme, as if he could achieve the Tao with a mere gesture. Guzu slightly gathered his spiritual power to try. finding that the originally smooth spiritual energy became even more fluent at this moment. Even simple moves. At this moment, it was even stronger than before. This was the Dharma body. The mind embraces the vast void. Its measure encompasses the sand world. Immediately, Gushu's face changed again, from the previous perfect appearance to becoming ordinary. His stature shortened a few inches. The white hair turned into black silk. His entire being had no striking features. Like a speck of dust in the vast Tao. Not eye-catching, not unique. Even the supreme Tao bones and innate saint rhyme that usually required full effort to conceal no longer needed to be hidden, as if they had completely disappeared. This was the transformation body. Moments later, Guzu displayed his true self. One couldn't tell he was wearing a mask. It seemed as if nothing had changed. But his cultivation aura completely disappeared at this moment. Like an ordinary mortal, even those with high cultivation could not detect it. This was also one of the three bodies. The reward body, the so-called reward body, is the body that receives the karmic reward. It is the true self in the world. But the true self is not truly oneself. Until Guzu took off the mask, everything returned to normal. Guzu returned to his usual state, but his gaze at the three bodies mask was full of astonishment. This three bodies mask seemed similar in function to fake face talismans and face-changing treasures. But in reality, it was entirely different, because whether it was talismans or treasures, they ultimately only changed. But the three bodies mask is different. This is the true three bodies of Buddhism. The three bodies are all false, yet the three bodies are all true. Unable to be seen through, unable to be revealed, because they are all the true self. No matter what heavenly secret or mystery, even the supreme of the Mahayana cannot see through it. This Buddhist treasure is very powerful, but Guzu couldn't help but frown. He always felt something was off. Not only because this item in that dream of 1,000 years was originally Zhongzhen's opportunity. More importantly, I was just worrying about how to sell these talismans discreetly without drawing attention to myself as a wandering cultivator. And now I turn around and get this three bodies mask. Isn't it a bit too coincidental? Guzu muttered to himself, feeling a bit confused, shaking his head. Unable to figure it out, Guzu simply stopped thinking about it. He took out a gathering talisman and used it, sat cross-legged and closed his eyes, continuing his cultivation, while Guzu continued his diligent cultivation. On the other side, at a certain ancient temple in the Tianqi mountain range, a group of disciples from the Qingshuan Holy Land, proficient in formations, were diligently trying to break the restrictions of the ancient temple. Around the ancient temple, one nameless corpse after another was scattered everywhere. A few others were floating, their bodies covered in wounds. Watching the group of formation masters from Qingshuan Holy Land, their eyes were filled with a mixture of resentment and hatred, but hidden extremely well, for fear of bringing disaster upon themselves. 2 days ago, someone approached this ancient temple, thinking it was just an abandoned old shrine. But upon getting closer, they discovered the temple was bathed in Buddha's light. The power of the restrictions was extraordinarily fierce. Countless people speculated that there was an extraordinary opportunity within. But unfortunately, the first people who discovered it used all methods but couldn't even break the formation restrictions outside the temple door. After much contemplation, they had to seek help, but they never expected that seeking help would be the beginning of a nightmare. Someone leaked the information. The news of the hidden Buddhist opportunity in the Tianqi mountain range spread within half a day. A large number of cultivators gathered here. After a series of intense negotiations, a group of people agreed to first break the restrictions together and see what was inside, then decide on the ownership. But unexpectedly, the Qingshuan Holy Land arrived. When the mighty Holy Land acted, These people had no say. At that time, some discontented individuals tried to reason, but ultimately became white bones at the opportunity's door. When the crowd looked at the young man in green, their faces showed fear. This person was none other than Zhongzhen, the holy son of King Xuan. Although his cultivation was only at the foundation establishment stage, his strength was extraordinary. Even those at the peak of foundation establishment were like clay chickens and pottery dogs before him. He could even battle those at the early golden core stage. He was a true peerless prodigy. More terrifyingly, this time he was accompanied by a Mahayana supreme from Qingshuan Holy Land. It was simply bullying. Zhongzhen, full of humility, said to Guan Zuin, "Thank you, Master, for being willing to bring me here. If not for Master's presence, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to obtain this opportunity. You are my disciple. As your master, I must protect you. If it were an enemy of the same level, I would not intervene. But if someone wants to bully the weak with strength, how could I stand by and watch my disciple be humiliated?" Guan Zulin smiled slightly and said, it was almost as if protecting her own was written on her face. Zhongzhen was infinitely grateful. He kept thanking her repeatedly. A few heavily injured cultivators nearby sighed inwardly, but could only admit their bad luck. There was no way around it. Who could compete with such a powerful background? Who could compete with such a loving sect? At that moment, a loud rumble suddenly came from the ancient temple, accompanied by the exclamations of a group of Qingshuan Holy Land disciples. It turned out the ancient temple's restrictions had backfired. Even golden core cultivators suffered significant damage. Fortunately, Guan Zulin was there. With a flip of her hand, several Qingshuan Holy Land disciples were immediately protected by her. Although they were injured, at least their lives were not in danger. Sect Master, inside this ancient temple, there are not only dangerous formations, but also extremely profound Buddhist power. With our disciples' abilities, we cannot break the restrictions here. These are clearly Buddhist restrictions, but they are extremely strange. We cannot break them. We might need the fourth or fifth Uncle Master to come. Only then can we break them. Even if we do, it may be useless. This ancient temple's defensive power is very strong. It seems to possess the power of Buddhist karmic retribution. I'm afraid only a Mahayana Supreme can break it. We hope the sect master will take action. Several Qingshuan Holy Land disciples who survived the ordeal spoke up one after another. Guan Zulin frowned. She hadn't expected that this ancient temple, which had existed for who knows how many years, could be so powerful. But since she was here, she wouldn't just stand by and watch. Guan Zulin furrowed her brow and looked at the ancient temple, then pointed her finger. Boom! A powerful Mahayana finger strike collided with the terrifying Buddha light in the temple, instantly exploding into dazzling light, making it hard to look directly. When everyone's vision recovered, they saw that the terrifying restrictions of the ancient temple had disappeared. As for Guan Zulin, who made the move, she stood with her right hand behind her back, her fingers hidden in her sleeve unseen, her face calm and indifferent. This made the severely injured cultivators gasp, exclaiming that a Mahayana Supreme was indeed unmatched in power. At the same time, they also understood this opportunity, even if given to them, they wouldn't be able to break the restrictions of this ancient temple. They didn't know what was inside, requiring the Supreme to personally break the restrictions. It wasn't simple. Buddhist sects rarely operate in the Eastern Desolation. They didn't know when this ancient temple was built, but hidden so secretly, with such terrifying restrictions, the items inside must be truly extraordinary. And fortunately, such an opportunity was not meant for them. The cultivators sighed repeatedly, but could only accept their fate. In the cultivation world, strength is revered. Now that a Mahayana Supreme had taken action, this opportunity indeed had nothing to do with them. Surviving was already considered incredibly fortunate. Compared to their regret and disappointment, the people of Qingshuan Holy Land were extremely excited. The restrictions of the ancient temple had been broken. They no longer hesitated, rushing inside one after another, eager to see first what treasures were hidden inside. Zhongzhen's face was even more fervent. This opportunity was destined for him. Although he had lost a heavenly grade sword a few days ago, if he got this item, it wouldn't be too bad. But just as his smile began to bloom, he saw a group of King Xuan's sect disciples walking out one by one with gloomy faces. Bah! There was nothing but a bald monk's corpse. Inside, there are just a few tattered Buddhist scriptures. Nothing else. The smile on Zhongzhen's face froze instantly. What? Just a corpse and a few scriptures? The words of this King Xuan Holy Land disciple made everyone outside the ancient temple look shocked. How could this be? The ancient temple was hidden exceptionally well. Its restrictive power was unparalleled. There was even Buddhist power blocking it, with so many measures in place. Normally, it should be hiding a supreme treasure, right? Nothing at all? Even Guanzulin slightly frowned at this moment. Did you search thoroughly? Reporting to the sect master, we searched very carefully. The ancient temple isn't big. There's not even a Buddhist statue inside, except for a few Buddhist scriptures and that bald monk's corpse. There's nothing else. Even those scriptures are ordinary, very old. As soon as the disciples touched them, they crumbled to dust. Several King Xuan Holy Land disciples answered. Their eyes were full of sincerity, clearly not lying. But the more sincere they were, the more restless Zhongzhen became. That's impossible. There can't be nothing inside. Everyone was puzzled, yet they saw Zhongzhen already stepping forward. Rushing inside, Guanzulin frowned slightly, but still took a step behind Zhongzhen. In an instant, he appeared inside the ancient temple, looking around. It was indeed as those disciples had said. This ancient temple looked impressive from the outside, but inside it was actually empty. There wasn't even a Buddhist statue where one should have been. Instead, there was a bald monk's corpse, sitting cross-legged with drooping brows and closed eyes. This person's strength in life must have been extraordinary. Now, he had long been dead, but his body remained intact. Apart from this corpse, there were some fragments beside it. Obviously, it was what the King Xuan Holy Land disciples had seen earlier. This is impossible. The guidance can't be wrong. There must be a treasure here. What's going on? Where did it go wrong? Damn it! Zhongzhen was muttering softly, his eyes continuously searching the ancient temple. He even started rummaging through the monk's corpse. His eyes had a trace of resentment. However, Guanzulin only felt heartache seeing this. Since the destruction of that heavenly grade sword, her beloved little disciple had been somewhat depressed. So when he asked her to come out and help this time, Guanzulin agreed. Without hesitation, she thought there would be an opportunity here. But now it seems it's all this bold monk's fault for making my disciple so sad. Guanzulin suddenly turned her head, her eyes fixed on the monk's corpse. With a bit of resentment, she raised her right hand and struck the monk's corpse with her palm. This time, Guanzulin used considerable force, because earlier when she broke through this place, there was a special power attached. The power was weak. She had temporarily suppressed it. She was worried there was something strange about the monk's corpse, and didn't want to hold back anymore. However, to Guanzulin's surprise, the imagined resistance did not occur. Under her palm strike, the monk's corpse turned to ashes like paper. This bold monk had used all his power to resist the external enemies of the ancient temple. The strength of his body had long been exhausted. Guanzulin instantly deduced the result. But then she was puzzled. Was this bold monk crazy to spend so much effort guarding air? As she was thinking this, her fingers suddenly started to ache faintly. That strange power had once again entangled her, making Guanzulin's eyes flash coldly. She didn't hesitate any longer. Using her Mahayana power, to completely destroy that strange power. But just as that power was entirely obliterated, a majestic hall in the western desert suddenly shook violently.